Hello and welcome to People in Profit, where we look at the business stories that impact your life. I'm Kate Moody. Coming up, has Abenomics been a hit or a miss? Japanese voters will have their say on the Prime Minister's economic vision as they head to the polls. The eurozone bids farewell to one of its most outspoken and controversial figures. We look at the legacy of Germany's longtime finance minister, Wolfgang Schäuble. And a special report about the Paris-based biotech firms hoping to change the face of medicine and the world of startups. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has been campaigning to stay in office ahead of a general election on October 22nd. Tokyo Governor Yuriko Koike has decided not to stand, removing what many analysts saw as the most serious obstacle in Abe's path. But her opposition party has raised questions about the government's economic vision for Japan, which could be reflected in the polls. Catherine Viet's been looking at the state of the world's third largest economy and the policies known as Abenomics.
He was elected on promises of jump-starting the Japanese economy. Now Shinzo Abe is betting his economic policies will keep him in office.
We've expanded the Japanese economy while the population is shrinking. We've proved that the proper policies make the economy grow.
Since he took office 5 years ago, unemployment has dropped to just under 3%. That's part of an economic plan dubbed Abenomics and based on a three-pronged policy which the Japanese leader describes as arrows. There's the monetary arrow, which is an expansion of the money supply to combat deflation. The fiscal arrow, which increases government spending to stimulate demand in the economy. And the structural arrow, with reforms designed to make the economy more productive and competitive. Abe and his advisors decided the best way to get the country growing again was to devalue the yen to make Japanese exports cheaper. While the strategy appears to have worked, for the most part, Japanese companies have preferred to sit on their profits. This has prompted the Bank of Japan to institute negative interest rates in an effort to spur investment. Still, wage growth remains very low, impacting consumer spending, and inflation is also well below the central bank's benchmark target of 2%. Even though the economy is in better shape than when Abe took office, many Japanese voters say they have not felt the benefits of Abenomics.
Now for more, we can speak to Seijiro Takeshita, professor at the University of Shizuoka. Thank you so much for joining us today, Professor, on People and Profit. Tell us, how important is the economy in this election compared to other issues like the tensions in North Korea?
Well, actually, economy is certainly one focal point, in fact, a major point, especially in regards to the timing of consumption tax increase. Previously, when we raised it from 5 to 8%, there has been a devastating downturn in the Japanese private consumption behavior, which caught everybody by surprise, including myself. So obviously, we're looking at the very strong fragility of the Japanese spending behavior. Now, to raise it from 8 to 10, this timing is very, very delicate, considering that, we will be seeing a recession after the boom that we're seeing on the building, for example, for like 2020 Tokyo Olympics. So this is a very, very major agenda that both Mr. Abe and LDP and versus the opposition is basically focusing on.
What's your assessment of Abenomics? We're nearly 5 years on from Prime Minister Abe first getting into office. Do you think his vision for the economy has had the desired effect?
Well, actually, it's still halfway done in the sense that I think he was fairly successful in putting, basically wake-up call, jabbing the arm in regards to rejuvenation of the corporate activity to a certain point. But it really didn't tickle through into like raising, for example, wages and seeing a lot of spending patterns come back. We haven't seen that yet. In other words, we haven't seen the successful structural transformation, which is what they were really targeting.
Now, what comes next, would you say? Do you think that these strategies that Prime Minister Abe has outlined, do they need to be continued? Do they need to be adjusted? What do you see coming next?
I'd say the LDP has much more of an execution power than the opposition. So obviously, I think many people who understand the reality of the economy will continue to, support LDP. But as you pointed out, there's a lot of, areas that the opposition could tackle, including, for example, restart of nuclear generators, and quite a lot of foreign policies, taxation into corporations, which I think is a disastrous policy. But, they'll be putting these words that will be very smooth and nice to many of the voters who feel frustrated right now. So there's a lot of, points which I think the opposition will target. One of it certainly would be, for example, scandals that we've been seeing in LDP, the corruption. So basically, I think there will be a lot of angles that, the opposition can tackle on.
We've seen a number of scandals impacting Japanese corporations, political parties. Is that an important issue for Japanese voters?
Very much so, I would say, especially in regards to the corporate side. I don't think the LDP will be held responsible for the scandals. But there's been a lot of political scandals, which I can see that the opposition will certainly tackle. The opposition is relying very much on populism. They're playing politics rather than playing policies. So obviously, scandals by the LDP would be something that the opposition will certainly utilize as their weapon to gain their vote.
What about the question of aging? Nearly a third of Japan's population is over the age of 65. Is that declining workforce something that's being discussed on the campaign trail?
It will be one of the major focal points. For example, utilization of women, utilization of the retired people, and also introduction of further workforce from overseas, immigration policies. Yes, certainly these are the issues that people should be putting a main focal point. But the main focal point on this election certainly will be on the consumption tax, and also on the energy side.
All right, Professor Takeshita, thank you so much for joining us on People and Profit. We turn now to Germany. After his ruling party suffered losses in September's election, the austerity champion is set to leave the European stage. Longtime Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble is shifting his focus to domestic affairs as the next Speaker of the German Parliament. He attended his last meeting of the eurozone finance ministers with a warning about the risk of new financial crises. He has divided European public opinion, but won praise from his peers at his Eurogroup curtain call.
He's a man of great intelligence, immense courage, with a good sense of humor. He can be tough sometimes. We didn't always share the same positions on everything, but this was never irreconcilable.
He will be missed, his experience, his wisdom, his sternness sometimes, but also personally as a friend.
Brian Quinn's been taking a closer look at a political career that began 5 decades ago.
A 75-year-old Wolfgang Schäuble is one of the most experienced politicians in the Bundestag. First elected in 1972, the trained lawyer oversaw negotiations to reunify East and West Germany. His experience and sharp tongue earned him the reputation as the EU's most powerful economic policy maker. He's been Germany's finance minister since 2009. Schäuble's high profile in Angela Merkel's cabinet led to his nickname of the co-chancellor. He's seen as a major architect of European austerity as he shaped the response to the continent's debt crisis for countries including Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Cyprus, and Greece. Schäuble became a controversial figure around Europe, but nowhere was he more reviled than on the streets of Athens. He openly suggested Greece temporarily exit the eurozone in 2015. Under his watch, Athens secured 3 bailouts, but was forced to rein in spending and undertake a host of painful reforms. Schäuble's economic vision is clear when we look at what he's done to the German economy. His obsession with black zero, or a balanced budget, has led to the country's record budget surplus. Schäuble is also staunchly pro-European, as evidenced by his efforts to safeguard the single currency. Under his watch, Germany has often risen to the occasion to help its neighbors, provided it gets the concessions it demands. Wolfgang Schäuble's departure from the German finance ministry will also be palpable at the Eurogroup in Brussels. That body is set to change drastically. Joran Dijsselbloem is also on his way out as he quits Dutch politics and leaves the Eurogroup presidency next January. All this could negatively impact French President Emmanuel Macron's plans for closer EU financial integration, with 2 of the staunchest pro-Europeans making their way out of the group.
All right, changes afoot in Brussels. Brian, thanks for that insight. Next up, effecting change from the bottom up. That's the goal of a Paris-based venture capital fund, which is financing and fostering biotech companies. Abenomics has created 140 jobs and raised 250 million euros as its startups seek solutions to transform the medical industry. Danjay Katalkar and Francois Weibo have this report.
This is the first time in 30 years that Francisco Mullet has been able to see. The 74-year-old is completely blind, but can now make out light patterns from different objects. That's thanks to special glasses and retina implants called Iris 2, developed by Pixium, a startup based in Paris. Pixium is the first of 8 biotech companies launched and financed by the venture capital fund Abenomics.
In France, we have very good science. We have really extraordinarily good scientists. We have a lot of young and less young people that want to create companies. We have a good environment to start those companies. So really the very first months or even year of activities. But then after, we cannot find the money to grow this company further.
The Abenomics startups, which have raised 250 million euros, are working on a wide range of technologies, including gene therapy for blindness, cures for Parkinson's, and mimicking the functions of the human retina and brain in a camera. One of them, Gecko Biomedical, has developed a special polymer called Cetylum that is used for reconstructing tissues and blood vessels.
Abenomics was able to bring us the right network, the right competencies in human resources, legal, finance, HR, and even quality management systems for our development. So we could really focus on the advancement of our program.
Abenomics houses all its startups on a campus in central Paris, which allows them to share resources and ideas. Having provided a launchpad for these startups, the next target for Abenomics is to make them sustainable businesses that can leave their mark all over the world.
That's it for this week. If you have any questions or thoughts about the stories we've been covering, you can get in touch on Facebook at France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at Kate A. Moody. Until next time, thanks for watching.
The 51%, presented by Annette Young.
A programme about women who are reshaping our world. We meet those who seek equality, be it in the boardroom or at the village well. The 51% brings you stories from across the globe about the women who are challenging the way we think.
The 51% on France 24 and France24.com.